Dear students, let us start the discussion on 07th March 2016 newspaper. The first article is related to the relevance of the FRBM Act. We all know that the FRBM Act has come into existence in 2003 and it has kept the upper limit of the fiscal deficit to be at 3% of the GDP. So in this context, is this FRBM Act is becoming a limitation in these extraordinary times for the economic growth? So in the budgetary speech, Finance Minister Arun Jaitley has said that it is the time we shall link the fiscal expansion and contraction to the credit growth or reduction. So based on that, we need to make a dynamic decision rather than fixing it to a particular number. So what he suggests is we shall shift to a band rather than to a fixed number. In this context, to what extent FRBM is a relevant law to the present day circumstances, and then how far this 3% of the target is empirical and also valid. Let us check now. Now you know that the money is critical for the economic growth, and most of this money is available with the banks, and banks has to lend and credit to the private players in the government to fuel the production. If this credit is absent, then automatically growth is bound to suffer. And in these circumstances, the budget has to pump in the money, and this leads to the revival of the growth. So if the credit has been decreased, then automatically the budget pumping has to increase to revive the growth in the economy. So we can say that the fiscal expansion and credit contraction, they are related to each other. When there is a credit contraction, either in the form of loss of demand for credit or decrease in money supply, the fiscal policy shall become an instrument to revive the same. So in this context, India's FRBM Act says that the fiscal target shall be 3% of GDP. So how this 3% is derived at? So author argues that this 3% is based on the European Union norms to include the new members. The certain economic criteria defined to include the new members. The very 3% is breached by most of the economies of the European Union, including the strongest economy, Germany. So in this context, India, to what extent it has to be shelved or shelve this particular 3% target? Today in India, there is something called as money supply growth is decreasing. At the same time, the credit growth is also decreasing due to lack of proper private sentiment. So these two are said to be the reasons for the recession or depression. If you talk about 1936 Great Depression, the major reason, the Milton Friedman was talking about the money supply growth reduction. And next is Mr. Tobin was talking about the reduction in demand for money, that is credit growth reduction. So now India is witnessing these two phases, that is loss in money supply growth and also the loss in credit growth. So it is the time we have to revise the FRBM Act. And next is review the fiscal consolidation path. It is just the continuation of the previous article. What it says is this: if India continues on the FRBM targets and if it fails to expand its fiscal policy, the worst that is going to get affected is the social services sector, that is health, education, etc. If you see today, majority of the budgetary cuts have occurred to the ICDS scheme, which is very much vital for the creation of strength and capability into the minds of the younger generation. So early nutrition forms the basis for the brain development. The very project lost the monetary support. So in this context, India has to revive its FRBM targets, and whatever the new money pumped in, it has to be used for creation of long-term assets, public capacities rather than the consumption. Now added to this, if you take the China as an example, so China has liberally revised its fiscal targets from 2.3 to 3% to react to the changing circumstances in the light of growing contraction of the economy. And added to that, even if you observe Europe, there are many revisions that are happening all around. So it is the time India has to look into the FRPM Act. Now, don't let the children down. It is about NFHS 4 and ICDS scheme. Now, we know that the scheme that is perfectly implemented till date, that is ICDS. What are the advantages of it? It has created a huge human resources at the ground level in the form of Anganwadi workers. And also, the rightly interpretation or interference of the Supreme Court, it has led to the directing of the resources and properly using of the resources without entry of the vested interest and commercial entities in the implementation of this program. Now further to this, now the NFHS 4 says that the stunting and wasting are the major problems in India even today. So in this context, we need to move towards greater allocations to the nutrition. But on the other hand, India in its present budget has shifted away from these nutritional allocations. So the budget has to be revised and some supplementary grants have to be provided for the ICDS scheme. Another dangerous trend which is coming up is, as budgets are decreasing, the states are decreasing the allocations for nutrition for children less than 2 years. So what does this mean? Now the brain development happens in less than 2 years. So the nutritional support has to be maximum in that area. So all the progressive states have corrected this, but many of the BMRO states, they are unable to take forward this particular thing. And coming to the budget lacks the political boldness and analysis of the budget. Now it was a golden opportunity for streamlining the fertilizer and food subsidy. We all expected that the urea pricing will be streamlined and then cash transfers will be initiated in these areas, but the government did not take any steps in that direction. And next is, today we are living in the scheme Raj, or else from license Raj to the scheme Raj. Government, rather than focusing on building the long-term assets and capacities of the state, it is just trying to appease the people through certain schemes. So the capacity building of the state, that is improvement of judiciary or legislative efforts or executive arm, they did not get any special attention. And next is, more than 2 lakh crores of rupees, one or the other way it is being spent nowadays through the panchayats. But there is no proper accounting structure and no capacity addition at the Panchayati Raj has happened till date. And you know that the cess is not a distributable pool of taxes. So ultimately it is leading to the drawback to the states. If the taxes are increased instead of that, the states also gets benefited. So center, by repeatedly raising the cess, it is depriving the states of its finances. And after the 14th Finance Commission recommendations, the relative resources that are available with the center also has declined. So it means there are no special strong efforts are made to revive the resources of the center. And coming to the RTI Act and political parties, you all know that in the Subhash Chandra Agarwal case, it was held that the political parties also come under the ambit of RTI. So it was by Central Information Commission. And all the political parties have challenged before it, and the issue is pending before the Supreme Court. So in this context, what is the argument of the political parties? Political parties say that they cannot be the public authorities under the RTI Act, Section 2H of the RTI Act. The reason is, the political parties are the voluntary associations of the citizens, and opening them to the public scrutiny, it will deprive them of a free independent debate and their various stratagems to control the government of the day. So from this perspective, political parties need not be brought under the RTI. Next, coming to the role of the social media in influencing the politics of the day. So this analysis clearly shows that there is conscious brand building of the Prime Minister Modi in the online. So, in this process, so a conscious effort, it has led to the creation of a public opinion. If you observe closely, as the elections shifted, then it has led to more and more youth-centric and development-centric tweets are being made. So it shows that so the attraction of the or else attracting the young generations through social media was the target of the Prime Minister Modi. But also on the positive side, now the social media is becoming a tool for understanding, gauging the public opinion, hearing to the voice of the people and the feedback from them. So in that way, one way it can be a political tool or a campaigning tool nowadays, and the other way, the social media is also a policy feedback tool. And coming to the women-led growth, we all know that the developmental theory initially has seen the women only as the beneficiaries. Later, women development was the theme. Now, women-led development is the theme. So the Prime Minister also stressed on the same thing. So the women-led development shall be the focus because women has the natural capacities for the multitasking. It makes them the better managers and also better performers. This is about the Prime Minister Modi and related to the women. Thank you very much. All the best.